Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause for Giulio Gallarotti!
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Take a seat. Take a seat. Hell yeah. All right. So we should get this out of the way at the beginning of the show. My name is Giulio. Giulio. Nobody ever knows that name. And it's very confusing for people. And once a week, I'll introduce myself to someone, and they actually get upset because they think that I'm fucking my own name up. I'm like, hey, what's up? I'm Giulio. People are like, it's Julio. Julio. And I'm like, no, it's Giulio. It's spelled with a G. And you'd think at that point they'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry. But no, they double down. And I'm like, no, it's Giulio. It's spelled with a G. They're like, Giulio? I'm like, yes. My name is Giulio. My brother's name is Ghostio. My parents love Halloween. And they gave us stupid fucking names. Yes, dude, my name's Giulio, exactly. So annoying. My dad is also named Giulio with a G. I'm like, dude, does this happen to you too? He goes, yeah, isn't it terrible? I'm like, why would you name me that too, dude? You knew about this? He's like, I'm sorry. He's like, they wouldn't let us leave the hospital until we gave you a name. We panicked. He's like, it was either gonna be Giulio or Darnell. Darnell? I'm like, who's Darnell? He's like, the nurse. He was a great guy. I'm like, okay, dude, great, yes. Giulio or Darnell. And alas, we are Giulio. They say that like you become your parents eventually in life, right? Well into my 30s now, and I'm just waiting for that moment to happen. When am I going to become my father? Right? And I don't know if it's gonna happen. Like it may or it may not. Like my dad is such a character. He's not trying to be offensive. He's not trying to be inconsiderate, but he can manage to be both. Like we'll go to that sushi restaurant, right? He walks up to the podium. He'll be like, table for two, please. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? He's like, well, it's customary in their culture to bow. I'm like, yeah, dude, here's a mallet. Why don't you go hit the gong while you're at it, dude? What are you doing, dude? Right? It's just stuff like that. Like, my uncle has these Ecuadorian friends. Okay, I've met them a bunch of times. They speak perfect English. They don't even have an accent. I've never heard them speak Spanish, okay? They came over one time for Christmas, and the whole night my dad's just going, Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. So it's kind of funny, right? He's sort of funny, but then when he thinks he's being funny, he's not that funny. And he even makes a face that indicates that he's very pleased with himself, that everybody in the family gets weirded out by. And it's sort of like vulnerable and submissive and effeminate. And it's sort of sexual. And he does it every time, right? He'll crack some silly joke. We're walking down the street. He's like, you guys see that graveyard over there? He's like, everyone's dying to get in there. I'm like, Dad, why are you such a bad girl, dude? Bad girl, Daddy. You are a bad girl, Daddy. Dude. So, I don't know. Yeah, typically pretty funny guy, but then, like, I think he crosses the line fully when he starts wasting people's time. But he thinks it's hilarious. Like, well, I took him to the doctor one time, and he thinks it's really funny to fill out the form wrong. He'll put the wrong name down. Right? So the nurse comes out. She's like, hi, is Snoop Dogg here? You just hear him be like, for shizzle. Dude, cut it out, man. So, I don't know if I'll ever get to that level, right? I don't know if I will become my father, but I feel like I'm starting to become a father. My body is telling me I'm ready. Like the last 4 or 5 years, I've had pretty lofty fitness goals, and I've missed them every time. So I'm like, I think I'm just going to lower my expectations a bit, right? Instead of wanting to have a six-pack, now I just want to look good with clothes on. I want to show up to that summer party wearing a thin t-shirt and not have to be this guy. Hey, what's going on? Hey, how you doing? Right? Just constantly rubbing my nipples sneakily to try to harden them so they don't look puffy. It's unbelievable. One thing that nobody ever told me, though, which has been frustrating, is that if I were to just show up today and start working out as hard as I can, I would get injured immediately. I spend more time attempting not to get injured than I do on the actual exercise itself, which is frustrating. And still, all the conditions could be perfect. I could be living the healthiest life. Still, some nights I'll go to bed completely healthy and wake up with a life-altering injury. That sucks, dude, right? Like, some nights, yeah, I go to bed, I'll sleep on a pillow that's slightly too firm and wake up paralyzed. Wiggle your big toe. It's so frustrating. Like right now, I have a torn labrum in my non-dominant shoulder. I have no idea how I did it. Just woke up with it one day. I went to the doctor and he's like, "Can you show me what you did?" And I was like, "Sure." Absolutely nothing, dude. He's like, "Oh, you're getting a little older, pal." The doctor said, he's like, "Maybe you should start participating in gentler exercise." That's a tough thing to hear as a man. It's the next step, gentler exercise. So I was like, all right, I just took that as no more punching, pounding, no more roaring. Not that I was ever doing that to begin with, by the way. But it sucks to be told you can't do something even if you never did it. I can't even do this thing anymore. Who thought of that? Like, we don't have enough ways to exercise. Let's embalm a 100-foot rope, wrap it around a pole. That is preposterous. So yeah, I've been doing gentler exercise. I've been doing Pilates and yoga. At the Pilates studio, they call me the inner thigh queen. But I will say this, like, doing yoga in the city hits a little different than doing it with nature nearby. Somehow, like, taking yoga in a city ends up being stressful. Everybody in the class is stressed out. It's like they barely found this hour to do it. They're sitting there, they want it to go well, and if anything goes wrong, everybody starts freaking out. It's a very unique thing to behold. Like, I'm sitting in a yoga class one time, the teacher's running late. Everybody's like... Manager of the studio comes in, and she's like, "Guys, I'm so sorry. Looks like the teacher's running late. I don't know where she is. Class may not happen." I just hear a guy in the back of the class go, "What the fuck?" And this dude had both feet on top of his hips. This guy was like a professional yogi. So I turned around and I was like, "Hey man, focus on the breath." But I also think the teacher needs to modify their approach depending on where they are instructing yoga, right? Like, there's certain things that people in a city don't want to do. Like, there have been times where I'm sitting in a yoga class and the instructor's like, "Look at the person next to you and tell them they're doing a great job." I'm like, dude, I would rather kill myself. Why am I talking to and touching other people? I showed up for myself today. Why are we turning this into church? I'm like, "Ah, peace be with you and with you. Peace be with you and with you," yes. Fuck that, dude. I don't want to talk to or touch strangers at any point. Like, if a stranger comes up to me on the street and wants to talk, nothing good typically comes out of that for me. Right? I walk out of that either with less money than I had before, or I have to reject a person, which is not good vibes. I don't want to have to do either of those things. And it's not just people who are like asking for money or making shit up. Like, charity people are just as bad. You see them because they're wearing a lanyard. And once they lock eyes with you, they try to charm you. They hit you with a little compliment. They do a little dance. They're like, "Hey, you with the cool jacket." Hit you with a riddle. They're like, "Name a state that has 7 letters in it." I'm like, dude, I will fuck you up. Get out of my face, dude. But because of that, I sometimes feel bad because if somebody had a completely legitimate problem and came up to me, I might not be as compassionate as I should be just because I don't trust them. One time I'm standing on a street corner, minding my own business, right? About to cross the street. I feel a tap on my shoulder. I'm like, Jesus Christ. You scared me, jeez. There's just this little lady standing there. And she's like, sir, I'm sorry to bother you. I'm hypoglycemic. I'm like, here we go, dude. I'm like, yes, I'm sure you are. I didn't say that, though. I was like, oh, my God. She goes, no need to worry. This happens to me all the time, but I'm about to pass out. Would you mind calling me an ambulance? I'm like, sure, yes, I'll call you an ambulance. She goes, would you also mind helping me to the ground? I was like, I don't know about that part, lady. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't think we need to touch each other again. We were standing under scaffolding, too. I was like, perhaps you can use the existing structure to assist yourself to the ground, but I will call the ambulance. Right? Whip out the phone, I explain it, I'm like, hey, she's hypoglycemic, about to pass out, happens to her all the time. They're like, all right, sir, just stay put, we'll be right there. I'm like, do you have an ETA? They're like, sir, just we'll be right there. I'm like, I work for the city now, apparently, this is great. No problem, dude, I'll be here. Right? Hang up the phone, I turn around to report the good news to our friend, and as promised, she is now passed out on the sidewalk like a pancake. I was like, oh, this really does happen to her all the time. And now I'm just standing over her body, directing traffic. Very busy street. Dozens of people are walking by, and each one is like it's really jarring to see a man standing over an unconscious woman. And I just have to diffuse the situation to probably 100 people. They pass by, they're like, oh my God. I'm like, happens to her all the time. Keep it moving, she's fine. They're like, do you need a stop? I'm like, I already called it, keep it moving. I turn into one of those dancing traffic cops. I'm like, so anyway, after 15 minutes or so, ambulance shows up, ambulance driver gets out. I'm relieved, she's gonna be fine, I can go home. But the ambulance person asked a kind of stupid question, and I became worried about this woman's future. He gets out, he's like, sir, thank you so much for waiting. He goes, is this her? I'm like, no, dude. No, it's not. I see why you would think that, but there's another guy around the corner standing over another woman's body. I actually punched this woman in the face. Living in a city for too long will wear you down eventually, I think. Like, there are things that bother me now that did not bother me 10 years ago, like loud noises. Loud noises will really get me. And it gets me to the point where I'm saying some really rude shit, where I'm like, oh my God, dude, Jesus, chill. Like, I'll just see 5 guys ride down the street on dirt bikes, and I'll be like, those guys deserve to go to prison for life. If I was mayor of this goddamn city, everything would stay below a 7 decibel level. Vote for me. I don't know. I love living in New York. It's great. It's like, I hold New York pretty close to my heart. Like, my parents are both immigrants. They both came, signed the book, the whole shebang, right? But because of this, because of the fact that my parents are immigrants, I go to Italy a lot to see my relatives and stuff, but I don't speak Italian. So I can't really talk to my family. It's disappointing, not just to family, but to other people. Like, you've seen my name. Like, you see my name on paper, you expect that I'm gonna be like, Giulio Gallarotti. It's just not the case. So I show up to Italy, they see the name, they start speaking Italian to me, I'm like, I don't. So it's tough, man. It's tough, dude. You know? So God forbid I end up hanging out with a family member and my parents are nowhere to be found. Now we can't really communicate. So if I'm just getting a ride from my uncle, just driving down the street, we're sitting in silence until one of us breaks. And it's always me. He's an older dude, he doesn't give a shit. He could sit there in silence all day. But I can't take it anymore at some point, and I will start small talk with an added made-up sign language element. It is the only way for us to accurately communicate, right? I'd be like, so, you gonna wear a seatbelt? You gonna wear a click? You think he would reward me for that, but immediately acts like that's the stupidest question ever. He repeats the word seatbelt as a rhetorical question. and then makes an extremely Italian gesture that shows me that he will not be wearing a seatbelt. You don't wear a seatbelt? He's like, seatbelt? I'm like, all right. And I'm like, but I've noticed. Some words are hard to pantomime, I've noticed. But I've noticed that you never wear a seatbelt. And I'm like, why? Out of curiosity. Never forget this. He answers the question, and I can't tell to this day if he just didn't speak English well enough to say what he meant, or if he meant the thing he was saying. Because when I asked, why don't you wear a seatbelt? He just goes, if it look like I'm gonna get into an accident, I can jump out of the car. And I'm like, but that's not how accidents work. We don't know. We don't know. And I'm like, all right, dude, whatever, good luck with that. Clearly you've never attempted this or I would have heard about it. That would fully be a viral video. Like, there was a very unusual car accident downtown earlier today. There was no one in the driver's seat. But there was an older Italian man unconscious on the sidewalk. Seems as if he jumped out of the car. But I do like going to Italy, aside from that added element of stress. But in general, I love traveling, seeing other cultures. I've become a bit of a travel guy. I'm one of these guys who's like, we're all the same. I'm self-conscious about it too. It's annoying. It's an annoying guy to be. But I do believe that, dude. But yeah, I have a pipe dream. I'd love to go to every country in the world. I think that would be really fun. I've been to like 50. So there are certain things in every country, right? For example, there's an airport in every country. And there are certain things about the airport that are the same everywhere. One thing that is universal, person who stands on the other side of the metal detector who waves you through, that person does the same thing every single place I've ever been. You sit there and wait and they go. They pucker. Walk through. Once you get through, that's when the culture can kick in. I went to Russia once and then I went to Finland directly afterwards. Two neighboring countries, they border each other, people have nothing in common. In Russia, like people are nice everywhere, but in Russia they don't seem nice at first. It's not like a very smiley culture, so you kind of got to break them in. They're like cats. You got to earn their affection, right? It's true. And then in Finland, people are so happy, they're like dogs. Everybody's just frolicking around being like, ho, ho, ho. So I walked through the metal detector with change in my pocket in both countries, completely opposite outcome. I walked through Russia, beep, beep. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Should I put my coins in the basket? The guy just stares at me. Sorry, dude. Yeah. Put the coins in the basket. He takes them, looks at them, puts them in his pocket. I'm like, all right, those are yours now. Goodbye. Same exact thing happens in Finland. I walk through, beep, beep. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, should I put my coins in the basket? Instead of answering, the guy just goes, it's nice to have money. Like, dude, are you trying to have sex with me? This is insane. One of my favorite things to examine, though, is like when I think a place is going to be a certain way and then it's not like that at all. Because you can't really know what a place is like until you've visited. You can know everything about it, but unless you've gone, you're missing an important piece there. And I think it's very interesting when it comes to danger. Like there have been times where I'm afraid to go on certain trips, and then I go and it blows my mind how nice of a trip I have, how easy it is, and I want to go back, right? And there's a lot of places that fit that description, but I'll use an obvious example. Iraq. Great trip. If you guys are thinking about going, you should go. I'm serious. Whatever. So, what a great trip. It's beautiful. There's great culture. The food's amazing. The people are so nice. You can't pay for anything. If you're from out of town, everything's free. Taxi's free, food's free, no one lets you pay. They don't even let each other pay for shit. To the point where it's a problem. Like, people want to pay so badly that people get into fights about it. There are signs in the restaurants that are like, everyone pays for themselves here. And I'm like, what could possibly be happening? Like, can you remember the last time you really tried to force your boy who wanted to pay for you to let you pay? It never really escalates that hard. I'm like, dude, I got this. They're like, no, I got this. I was like, come on, man, I got this. They're like, dude, you get the next one. Okay. Over, right? I guess not in Iraq. Like, I'm thinking, what does that even look like? They're like, dude, I got this. No, I got this. Dude, I got this. I got this. Fuck you. Fuck me. Fuck you. Your mother's a whore. Dude, I'm wearing a bomb right now. I have a bomb strapped to me right now. Slowly slide the check across the table, or we're all going down today. Okay, dude, okay. Is that what's happening here? I'm like, dude, what the fuck? One thing that's funny too is like when you get there, some of the people who work there or who are walking around, whatever, they know that you have a preconceived idea of what Iraq is gonna be like. And they'll fuck with you. Which is pretty funny. It's not funny in the moment, but it's pretty funny afterward. Right? I remember I get off the plane, first time, I've never been there before. First person I talk to is a soldier who's checking my passport. And he looks at me, he goes, passport. I was like, oh my God, sorry. Flips it open to the picture page and just starts confirming that it's me really intensely for like 30 seconds. My heart is beating. And then he just goes, I'm just fucking with you. I was like, really? He goes, yes, welcome in Iraq. I'm like, dude, when do you get off of work, man? Like, we should hang. He had a perfect mustache. I'm like, dude, this guy rules. This is fucking awesome. But I have had a couple of moments that became a little bit more prickly, where I've had my Icarus moment. Maybe flew a little too close to the sun and was in situations where maybe I didn't feel entirely safe the entire time. Afghanistan. Slightly more on brand. Unfortunately. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of the same things are true there that are true everywhere. People were so hospitable, nicest people you'll ever meet in your life, beautiful nature, food's pretty good, but there's one obvious issue with visiting Afghanistan: the Taliban. If you go to Afghanistan, you're gonna end up spending a lot of time with the Taliban. Every single day. And it sucks. But it sucks not for the reasons that you might expect. Like if you go to Afghanistan and they saw your passport and saw that you were a tourist, they would be so excited that they force you to hang out with them the entire day. And that's not a cheeky way of saying arrested. They force you to hang out with them the entire day, and now you just have the scariest best friend in the entire world. And you want nothing to do with this friendship. Right? But you have no choice. The Taliban love unarmed white people. And I think the reason why they're so excited is because they somehow think that you being there means that they've done a good job. I don't really want to be the one delivering that message, but it is an interesting thing. So this is what a hang session with the Taliban looks like. You're sitting there, you're drinking tea, they're telling you you're great, they're doing this a lot. We're laughing, we're joking around. By the end of it, I'm like, dude, these guys are pretty chill. These guys are all right, man. Like, I think they call this Stockholm Syndrome. This is phenomenal. But every once in a while, I have a moment where I'm like, okay, being forced to chill with people is not that cool, no matter what. And they're heavily armed. Like, there's no rebranding of the Taliban occurring. This is the same Taliban. Just picture the scariest looking Taliban person you could picture. This is who we're talking about. So it's pretty intimidating, dude. And then they would just ask all these questions. They're very nosy, very curious. And they start asking stuff where I'm afraid to answer honestly, because there's always this vibe in the room that if I were to say the wrong thing, shit could go south immediately. So they're like, wow, welcome to Afghanistan. They're like, what do you think about the Taliban? I'm like, I think they're great. I'm like, I love the Taliban. I love the Taliban, he proclaimed. I was like, I hope my phone is not listening to me right now. I just start getting served ads on Instagram from the State Department. Having trouble getting back into the country? But they're like so curious. They keep asking. They're like, wow, that's amazing. They're like, how do people in America feel about the Taliban? I'm like, do you not know the answer to this, dude? And they're like, oh, wow, they don't. I'm like, dude, it's funny you ask. They love you too. Everybody over there loves you, dude. They're like, wow, this has been so eye-opening. They're like, hey, would you like to join the Taliban? I'm like, guys, it would be an honor. Show me where to sign up, dude. This conversation happens every single day if you go there. Some version of that. You get pulled over at a checkpoint, they make you get out of the car, they want to take a selfie with you with their phone. And I'm like, dude, can you send me that? They're like, no, dude. Or if you're in like a more densely populated area, they might take you for a little show and tell, which is very stressful. Right? I get out of the car, they're like, wow, my friends are never going to believe I met an American. I'm like, well, you're going to have to tell them. And they're like, no. I'm going to show them. And I'm like, great, dude. Cut to me now walking down the street with this Taliban dude, and we're holding hands. And that's not like a fancy way of saying handcuffed. No palm hand holding, fingers interlocked. Walking down the street, and he's so excited, like he's about to show up to his high school reunion with a baddie. And at that moment, I was like, I think I have a boyfriend. And I'm like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna lean into this. He is my Taliban daddy. I provide him with companionship, and he provides me with protection. Right, I'm like, oh, you want it with me? You want it with me? Well, you're gonna have to talk to Muhammad first. Show me your gun, baby. Show me your gun, sweetie pie. And I'm like, oh, your beard. Boop. I've been a very bad girl. Right? I'm like, what a chip off the old block, huh? If only my dad could see me now. Who's a bad girl now, Daddy? Who's a bad girl now? So whatever, right? This is all fun and games, no big deal. But the moment that I was referring to earlier in the set, one night I had a very scary night with the Taliban. And definitely ruined the trip immediately. I was like, I need to go home now. One night, we're driving at night. They always say don't drive at night in Afghanistan. Didn't understand that. We were running late because everybody was inviting us over their house. And before you know it, it's nighttime. We get pulled over. The guys are like out of the car. And they go, join us for dinner. Okay. Sit on the side of the road. They have a giant Gatorade container of beans. Gatorade, logo. Like, this is nuts. They're apologizing, like, sorry, we only have beans. I'm like, it's all right. It's fine, dude, whatever. And they're like, you know what? They're like, you're a great guy. They're like, the commander would love to meet you. And I'm like, all right, well, where is he? They're like, he's over there. Do I have a choice? They're like, no. I'm like, okay, great. By the way, the commander was an hour drive away. That's not over there. That got lost in translation. They send a guy with us with a machine gun. It's like 10 p.m. We're driving Lord knows where, and we get out, and I'm standing in front of a giant Taliban compound, and the commander comes out. Welcome! Okay, invites us inside. There are so many guns in this house, including the one that's like this. It's just on the floor, pissing my pants. The guide starts showing the commander videos of my stand-up. He's going, oh. Right, so it's all going fine. It's taking a while, but at some point, one of the Taliban henchmen comes in, throws my luggage on the ground, and he's like, now we're gonna search you. And I was like, but I thought we were friends. He's like, we are. That's why you're gonna search yourself. And show us what you find. Okay, it's an interesting loophole. So now I'm just like, this is a sock. These are underwear. And then I pull out a mini thing of Tums. They're like, what's that, medicine? I'm like, yeah, you know, like indigestion. They didn't know what that was. I was like, you know, like. And he's like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, all right. And now I'm giving the Taliban commander Tums. He eats them. He's like, I'm like, they're pretty good, right? Tums smoothies, the good shit. I was like, don't eat too many in a 24-hour period. Whatever you do. So anyway, at some point they find all my money. And in Afghanistan, you have to carry a lot of cash. So it was, No, you need, right? You need it. So they find the money, and then I'm like, oh, fuck, this can't be good. And the guy's like, film me counting the money. He counts all the money on camera. Then they turn off the camera, and he goes, I didn't want you to be able to tell anyone I took money from you. I was like, oh, that's nice. He goes, but what about a little donation? And I was like, well played, Taliban commander. Well played. But I don't know if you've ever been shaken down before by like a foreign government. It's a pretty icky feeling. Not to mention when it's the fucking Taliban. I was terrified, right? And at that point, what he did not know, fortunately, is that a lot of that money was supposed to go to starting a school in Afghanistan. This place that we had visited where there was no access to school for the kids, we're like, we should hire some teachers and start a school. That's what we were doing the next day. If they take all that money, that school is not happening, right? So they raises the stakes. Heart's beating, I'm scared, I'm stressed, right? We're all standing there in the driveway. Tense. So I'm like, a donation. I'm like, how much? And he's like, $100? Absolutely, there you go. I was like, you know what, take 200. Just don't tell the FBI about this. If you happen to run in, can we go? He's like, yeah, goodbye. I'm like, oh my God, thank God. So I escaped from that moment scot-free. School got started. Thank you. And to my knowledge, it has been a success. They send me updates every month, pictures and videos of the kids learning, secular curriculum, boys and girls of all ages. It's been a really cool thing. But I can't help but think that it's kind of a hilarious plot twist that our inclusive and secular school program in Afghanistan would not have been possible without the generosity of the Taliban. What a hilarious plot twist. Their modest form of extortion allowed a couple more kids to get educated, and who knows? I have a pipe dream that one of those kids will overthrow their government someday. They have no idea what they've done. So give it up for the Taliban one more time. So anyway, I love doing all this kind of travel, but I do feel the walls closing in on me a little bit, right? I just got engaged, which I'm very excited about. Very excited about it. She's great. It's been a good time. I will say one thing. I'm adjusting to calling her my fiancee. I feel like that's sort of a goofy word. Like, why have we adopted such a difficult word? It requires an accent. Right? I'm like, that's not my fiancée, dude. I'm not French. That's my bitch. I'll say that with her standing there. She's like, really? I'm your bitch? She's like, remember 2 hours ago when you were talking like a baby asking me to rub your tushy? I'm like, not for the guys, babe. Come on. But it's a lot of fun, man. And I will say this, like, I finally feel like an adult. It's a solid relationship. The stakes feel low in the best way. Like, when I wake up in the morning, I'm not worried that the relationship's gonna end that afternoon. When I was 25, every relationship felt like that. Every morning felt like it was Game 7. I was like, we don't perform tonight, we're going home, boys. All right, we're gonna send back down to the D-League. So now it's chill, man. We have little jokes we play. It's a lot of fun. Like, one of my favorite things to do when we go out in public, sometimes I like to pretend that she's my daughter. It's a good one, dude. Feel free to use it. Everybody has a good time. It's pretty fun. One thing I like to do, I like to add a little bit of a Brooklyn Italian accent to it. I think it makes it like 20% more inappropriate. And you can whip it out at any time, right? Like, the waiter comes over, he's like, you guys ready to order? I'm like, yeah, 2 steaks, 1 for me, 1 for my daughter over here. He's like, that's your daughter? I'm like, yeah, she looks good, right? He gets it from a mother. He's like, all right, sir, very funny. But in all seriousness, he's like, these are pretty big stakes. Are you sure you each want your own? I'm like, I know what you're thinking. She's a skinny balink, but you should see the ass on his kid. Sweetie, stand up. Show him. Show him. Nah, she's embarrassed. Yeah, you give your life away for these kids and they're embarrassed, all right? Come here, sweetie. Give me a kiss. Come here. You know, I know that's a good one. You know whose favorite joke that is? Her real dad. He's like, that's a good one, Giulio. I'm like, thanks, Barry. Appreciate you, pal. I appreciate it. But it's nice, man. It's nice to wake up in a solid relationship. Just feel good. You know what I mean? When I was like 25, dating, way more stressful. I had a girlfriend who was still in college. I would visit college to visit her. Loser move, dude. There's no way to visit college as an adult with dignity unless your children are enrolled. And I had not yet thought of the father-daughter joke. That would have been very useful there. But alas, I remember rock bottom. Rock bottom, I was going to visit her one weekend, right? I spent $6 on condoms. Large percentage of my net worth at the time. Spent $6 on condoms. Took the bus up to visit her on Friday afternoon. We ended up not having sex that weekend. I take the bus back on Sunday and I realized that $6 means a lot to me. So I went to CVS and I returned the condoms. If you're the age where you're still buying condoms, you know how stressful that can be. Imagine returning them. I was terrified. I'm trying to give myself a pep talk to do it. I'm like, dude, CVS is a massive corporation. They're not allowed to comment on returns of any kind, I'm sure. Just go in there, put your head down, slide them on the counter. It'll all be over in a second, dude. So I walk in there, slide them on the counter. Who's working that day? Same person I bought them from on Friday. It shouldn't have mattered, right? But immediately she just goes, what happened? And I had to save face in that moment. I just go, she passed away. She's like, oh my God. She's like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, it was her time. That was tough, dude. I do not miss that time of my life. I don't miss being broke. I don't miss being single. I don't miss any of it. You go out to this great date. It goes amazing. You have to have sex. There's so many stressful things that are happening. When you're in a long-term relationship, you don't need to do that anymore. Now, like, we go out on a date night, right? We're thinking, oh, maybe we're gonna mess around a little bit later, right? We open that menu and it's like, best burger in town. I'm like, babe, we can wait till tomorrow. I'm like, waiter, we'll have the apple with smoked bacon and the egg on top, thank you. You don't have that luxury if you're on a good date, right? Even if you're on like a third date, you barely know this person. You go to this great big dinner, you eat, you drink, now you have to have sex. You're about to do the most intimate thing you can do with a person besides shooting them in the head. It's true, the only thing more intimate than making life is taking life. You guys are like, this show just took a really weird pro-life turn. Okay? But now there you are, and you're trying to do your thing. You're full, you're cramping. Every time you move, your body's making noise. It's that like liquid jiggling around in your... And you can only hear that noise from someone else when you're right up next to them. Now every time you move around, like... Bloop, 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 bloop. Bloop, 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 bloop. It's like, dude, this is so embarrassing. And there's also that sound, that like reverse air sound of you trying to hold everything in. It almost sounds like there's a whale swimming around in your tummy, calling across the ocean to the other whales. Ooh. Ooh. And that sound doesn't feel like anything, so you can theoretically get away with it a couple times. You'll be like, she'll just think this was her. You keep doing your thing, but after the second or third one, ooh, you now in a silent room just have to be like, sorry. Forgot to take my lactate pills. So you can avoid that. If you just have music playing, you might not be able to hear each other's stomachs. But you have to remember to put music on before you begin the hookup. Because you can't exit a hookup to turn music on. It's too cringe, dude. You turn into Mr. Sexy Man. You have to exit a sesh. Am I serious? A sesh? A sesh. You're like, dude, how long has it been since you've been single? It's been a while, dude. And then you have to select a sexy soundtrack to re-enter the room to. It's brutal, right? You're like, 1 second. You walk across your house, you turn on the Bluetooth player, boodaloo. Then you walk back in like a stripper. It's like, now coming to the stage, it's Giulio! Dude, I don't wish that on anybody. That sucks, man. The other shitty thing about new dating, right? Facilitating it can be difficult and stressful, right? Dating apps. There are ways to make mistakes on dating apps that will prevent a conversation from even starting. Like, have you ever done this? You send a message on a dating app when you don't have service, and it'll send twice. It's the first message. It's a crucial moment. Hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? In your head, you're like, she knows that that was a mistake. I'm not going to say anything. But after 2 or 3 days, you can't help but wonder that if you had only said it once, would things have gone differently? That's right. 72 hours have gone by. Now you intervene. You're like, I didn't do that. You're like, you think the app developers would have figured this out by now. What about on our first date? We go over there, we find them, and we tell them, now you've written this much. No one's replying to that. You're done. You're done. You can also get confused. Like, there were different colors on all the apps with the messaging, and I made some really bad mistakes. I remember one time I'm looking at my old matches. I didn't have any good combos going. I'm scrolling back. I see a nice message that I hadn't replied to. I'm like, why didn't I reply to this? It was like, hey, you're cute. So I wrote back, you too. And that's when I realized I was the one who said, hey, you're cute. So I'm just flirting with myself with another person watching. And the fact that there were 3 weeks between those two messages just makes it seem like I'm being passive aggressive. Hey, you're cute. 21 days later, you too. There's people on this app with feelings. God damn it, dude. What is interesting, digital messaging has added a whole new layer of stressful situations that wouldn't have happened if you just talked to the person in person. Like, I've made this mistake before. You ever go to talk shit about somebody via text message and somehow you send it to the person you're talking shit about? It's impossible to get out of. You say their first and last name with specific things about them. They should have never seen it. You were just blowing off some steam, and you can send that message so fast that now it's there and there's nothing you can do. Like, dude, Stephen Elliott sucks. He tells the worst stories and he smells terrible. Fuck that guy. Sent to Stephen Elliott. And then he's like, dude, what? And I don't know about you, I'm not willing to admit that I just did that by accident, so I pretend that I sent it on purpose, but in a way that makes it seem like I had good intentions. Probably impossible, but this is all I've ever been able to come up with, because I've done this a few times. I send that message, he's like, dude, what? I'm like, sorry, man, I meant to put that in quotation marks because I just heard people talking shit about you. That's how good of a friend I am, man. I'm gonna follow them and see who it was. You can't have people like that in your close circle. He's like, thanks, man. But there's other ways to make that mistake, too. I've done it with photos. Old boss of mine, I discovered his Instagram profile. Just a bunch of shirtless photos of him. Didn't expect that. Took a screenshot, went to send it to the old coworkers, sent it to my boss. Just a photo of him shirtless with no context. And I think I cropped it in perfectly, too. So I just send that to him, and he sends me back a question mark, and then I just have to be like, looking good, dude. Looking good, buddy. He never replied. I sent that at 11 p.m. too. Brutal. So anyway, dude, I don't know. So I worry about that kind of stuff. It gives me anxiety, but I realize it could be a lot worse. My girl, still trying to figure out what to call her. My girl, my fiancee, my bitch. I heard Ricky laughing backstage of that. Thank you, dude. But, like, she has a very severe nut allergy. Like, it's so bad, just to give you some context, it's so bad, if I were to eat a cashew and kiss her on the mouth, she has like 30 minutes to live. Yeah. So it's hard for her, but it's hard for me too, dude. I gotta be honest. I love cashews. They're delicious. And now I just can't eat them anymore. And you guys might be wondering, well, do you eat them at all? And the answer is yes. When she goes out of town, I hit the shoes hard. She goes out of town, I hit the shoes hard, baby. Somebody's got to do it. But while I'm doing it, I feel guilty. You know, I feel like I can't tell her what I'm doing. It's fucked up. Like, I'm sure it's jarring to hear someone is eating the thing that kills you. Right? So if she calls and asks what I'm doing, I will lie. She's like, what's up? I'm like, nothing. And then I feel really guilty. I'm like, am I cheating? Is this cheating? And I'm like, no, it's not. This is not cheating. This is enjoying a naughty little snack. Right? It's not cheating, dude. But I feel bad for her. This is a bad time to have a nut allergy. Science is getting so amazing. There are so many nut-based products that you would never have any idea are made of nuts. Like, we'll be at a party, we're like, can you pass the pizza? They're like, cheese is made of cashews. I'm like, all right, well, can you pass the chicken breast? They're like, that's made of cashews too. Then we just see a chicken run by, and I'm like, let me guess. They're like, yeah, that's a free-range cashew. Dressed it as a chicken for authenticity. So anyway, we've had some scares. Someone will accidentally slip her some cashew dressing, cashew butter. We got to go to the hospital immediately, right? But we have had a couple of false alarms that have worked out in our favor. We went to dinner one night for her birthday. Big night. I was paying. Expensive restaurant, too, by the way. Out of my price range. But I've been saving money for this meal because on her special day, my daughter gets whatever the fuck she wants. You get whatever you want on that menu, sweetheart. Having the best night. We order it all, having a great time. We order dessert, coffee, ice cream. It comes out. She takes a bite. Something's wrong. Hazelnut. Yeah, they poisoned my sweet angel. They fucking poisoned her ass. It's like unbelievable, dude, right? So we didn't know this at the time, but apparently she's not that allergic to hazelnuts, so she was gonna be fine. We didn't know that, so we're preparing to take all measures. We tell the waiter, his eyes open wide, he just runs away. Waiter ran away. I just see him in the corner of the restaurant talking to himself. He's like, how could this be? The manager comes over, she's like, guys, I'm so sorry, I heard about what happened. She goes, dinner's on the house, it's free. I was like, what? I look at her, I'm like, babe, I think we're onto something here. I'm like, are you serious? Completely free? She's like, yeah. She's like, take my card anytime you need a reservation. I'm like, dude. So before we leave the restaurant, I was like, sweetie, 1 second. I went and found that waiter. I slipped him $20. I was like, dude, I will see you on Valentine's Day. Perfect execution, dude. I gotta be honest, I take a little bit of comfort knowing that if the marriage is a complete failure, I can easily murder her and get away with it. The perfect crime is honey roasted. And the alibi is delicious. It was Professor Peanut in the library with the cashew butter. I actually have other endearing terms for her that I use that are also mislabelings. Right? Like beyond the daughter thing. Sometimes we'll do with gender too. I call her my sweet little boy. I actually do. I say, you're a good boy. It's not even sexual. Like, it's just like a fun little sweet thing that's supposed to only be for us, but now it's for everyone. No, but I'll do it in like really important, crucial, sincere moments. And I have proof that I did this. But when I proposed, I said to her, I was like, sweetie, you're my special boy. And now I want you to be my special man. I really hope that other people begin to do that too. It's a lot of fun, man. But it's been good. Living together's been a blast. We have a lot of fun together. People always used to say to me, they're like, you need to live with the person before you know they're the one. Which I ultimately agree with. I think that's true. And I understand why now. Because when you live with somebody, you uncover all of their shitty qualities. I don't know a better way to say it. Their bad qualities. What are their bad tendencies, right? Her worst thing she does, she will blame me for shit that I didn't do. So anything can happen and it's my fault. I did it. And it's really frustrating, right? It can happen at any time. Like the other night, we are in our bed sleeping. We're asleep in bed. I'm there. We hear people fighting somewhere in the street. We live on like the 35th floor. We're nowhere near the street. But we hear people fighting. We hear someone yell, fuck! Fuck! And then we just hear a gunshot. Yeah. Silence. We wake up, and she just looks at me and goes, I'm like, what? She goes, are you serious? I'm like, I had nothing to do with that. Like, what do you mean, am I serious? She's like, oh, you're just not gonna do anything? I'm like, do you have any suggestions of what? I was like, you want me to go down there? I'm not doing that. I'm like, not to mention, judging by the silence, it seems as if they've resolved the problem. Right? Like, they could use me 18 seconds ago, but I think we're good, dude. She's like, oh, okay, you're not even gonna call the cops? I'm like, I'm not a snitch, dude. So how about option 3? Let's download the Citizen app. We'll see what happened in the morning. Hopefully someone will file a police report on this. So anyway, she's heard me tell this story to our friends, and she gets annoyed. She's like, you're missing the point. I was annoyed about your initial reaction. She goes, I just felt you were far too casual given the gravity of the situation. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, would you have preferred that I just dove out the window and killed myself? Like, what do you want me to do in that situation? Like, she goes, I just don't think you remember what you did specifically. Like, what could I have possibly done the moment that I woke up? She goes, okay, allow me to remind you. She goes, we heard what happened. We woke up. I looked at you and said, what was that? And you just went. It's like, I did that? She's like, yes, this is exactly. And I was like, yo, that's hard as fuck, dude. I was like, I'm the man, apparently. Who knew I was this cool? Give me a half an Ambien and send me back to Afghanistan. They're like, what do you think about the Taliban? I'm like, I'm more of an ISIS dude. Bitch! It's ridiculous. But living together's been interesting. Like, I've learned a lot, right? And even if it's just stupid, random shit. Like, I had no idea how staticky women's underwear are. Wild. Now that we share laundry, I'm just finding her underwear in all of my pockets. And it even like attached to stuff that doesn't have pockets. Like, I'll look at my shirt, I'm just wearing a bra. Pulling them out of my mouth like a magician. And sometimes it'll happen at really unfortunate times. Like, I'm walking down the street wearing a pair of shorts, and suddenly women's underwear falls to the ground. It's just a pink thong on the sidewalk. I have to then peel it off the sidewalk. Everybody saw, because when I look up, they look away. And I'm like, these aren't mine, dude. These aren't mine, they're my girls. So there's that. But the other thing, like there were certain activities that I used to romanticize about living together that have not been what I expected. One thing that I used to think would be awesome is bathing together. And just bathing. Just two lovers. Doesn't this sound nice? Just rinsing the day from each other. Staring into each other's eyes. Right? It just sounds like a wonderful thing. I've never seen two people bathing together in a movie or a TV show where it wasn't wonderful. Right? They're either having hot sex or one person had a tough day and the other person is comforting them. And that's what I want, the latter. We all know sex in the shower is no good. There's just no way to do it. There are things that are counterintuitive about it. Like warm water is both warm and wet. Why is it the worst lubricant? Why does it make it feel like we're both wearing sandpaper? Because it hurts a lot, dude. And there also just isn't a good position. It just turns into her being like, all right. I'm like, all right, let's put my yoga skills to the test here because I'm too tall, so I'm just like. Follow my ass. Like, so I know better than that. So I mean, just bathing, right? I figure it would be something like this. Maybe she had a tough day at work, and I can see that. I'm intuitive. I'm like, oh, sweetie, what's wrong? Come here. Hey, come to daddy. She rests her head upon my chest. I stroke the back of her head. And look, I've been dating her long enough that I know the corporate lingo, okay? I know how to say things that will be comforting to her. I'm like, hey, sweetie, don't worry. They're going to renegotiate your comp structure in Q4. You are too valuable to this company, sweetheart. What would they do without you, right? But it's just not like that. And one thing you need to consider if you want to bathe with people you love, it sounded a little weird, people. If you're bathing with loved ones, you deserve to go to prison. Bathe with the one you love, right? You need a nice enough shower. You need the proper infrastructure. You need money. And if you're not sure if you have a nice enough shower, this is a very simple measurement tool. If your shower door is just a sheet curtain, plastic hooks that snap into a sheet, that shower accommodates one person at a time. I will never forget realizing that for the first time. We get in that shower, when we moved in together, we leap over the levee. Gently. She goes up and she turns on the faucet and she just begins, right? And I'm just back here. Hey, maybe I could get some water too. So I just give up. Now I'm just standing in the back of the shower, watching her take a shower. Freezing my ass off. And I'm like, this is nothing like I expected. We're not staring into each other's eyes. We're facing in the same direction in a single file line. It's freezing cold. We're in a long ceramic oval. I'm like, this is more of a two-man bobsled team than a hot shower experience, right? It's such a proper metaphor, too. Like, the chances of this progressing into something sexual are shrinking the way my frozen penis is. Back into my body, it's gone. Nothing there where a man once was. Waving the white flag, all quiet on the Western Front. It's just nothing. And the lights are bright. I'm just standing there. And I'm like, this is not how I want to be seen by my girl. You know what I mean? All the guys in the crowd know your limp penis has a wide spectrum of what it looks like. And you don't want to be seen then. You only want to be seen when there's good humidity, good blood flow. And in those moments, I'll make sure to walk around in front of her naked to rewrite the narrative. Like, this is what children will learn about in their history books. Right? But instead, there I am, no penis. I sort of have big hips for a man, too. So now it just looks like two women are bathing. Right? And there I am, standing in the back of that shower, all vulnerable, effeminate, submissive. And I realized this is the moment where I'll become my father. Guys, thank you so much. This is so much fun. This is a dream. Thank you so much.